Have you ever noticed how some older people seem to gradually drift into isolation as they age? The words we speak hold more power than we often realize. Every sentence we say shapes how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. However, there are certain phrases that, when spoken repeatedly, can unintentionally create distance, foster guilt instead of appreciation, and evoke pity rather than respect. This discussion is not about placing blame or making anyone feel bad. Instead, it's about recognizing how a few common phrases can unknowingly weaken the relationships we hold dear. More importantly, it's about learning how to replace them with words that encourage connection, compassion, and dignity. In this journey, we will explore 6 seemingly innocent expressions that, when used frequently, can make others feel helpless, misunderstood, or even unwelcome. Often, these words don't stem from ill intentions, but rather from habit or personal struggles. However, their impact on our relationships can be profound. So stay with us until the end because each of these phrases comes with a powerful shift. We will uncover why these words affect people the way they do, and how you can change them without losing your authenticity. By the time we finish, you might not only learn how to keep people close, but also discover ways to strengthen bonds in ways you never expected. Let's begin. The first phrase, I'm just a burden. One of the most quietly damaging things an older person can say is, I'm just a burden. These words often come from a place of vulnerability or exhaustion, but their effect on loved ones is much deeper than we realize. When you say this, you unintentionally place an emotional weight on those around. It makes them feel like they must carry not only your struggles, but also your feelings of hopelessness. Even if they don't say it out loud, this phrase can make them feel helpless, sometimes even guilty, as though nothing they do will ever be enough. Over time, this pressure can erode the closeness you once shared. Take Harold, a 78-year-old man I once met. Whenever his daughter visited, he would sigh and say, I know you have your own life. You don't need to worry about an old burden like me. He thought he was being considerate, but what he didn't realize was how painful it was for his daughter to hear those words. It made her feel like her love and care weren't appreciated, like they didn't matter. Eventually, she started calling less, not because she loved him any less, but because every conversation left her feeling defeated, as if she was losing her father to his own sense of worthlessness. When you say, I'm just a burden, you may believe you're being honest, but what others hear is, you shouldn't care about me. No matter how gently spoken, this message can push people away. The truth is, most people want to help, want to be there, and want to share moments with you. But they don't want to feel like their presence is making things worse. When you minimize your own value, you may unknowingly make them feel as though they are failing you, even when they're doing their best. Instead of saying, I'm just a burden, try shifting to, thank you for being here. It means a lot. A simple sentence like this offers others a sense of purpose and connection. It reassures them that their presence is valued without making them feel obligated. Most importantly, it keeps the door open for love and closeness to grow. You are not a burden. You are a person who has lived through decades of stories, triumphs, losses, and wisdom. Don't let one phrase diminish all that you still have to offer. Speak words that remind both yourself and those around you that you are still someone worth showing up for. The second phrase, back in my day. Few phrases create more distance between generations than back in my day. It may seem like a simple way to reminisce, but when used too often or too sharply, it can come across as dismissive, judgmental, or stuck in the past. While sharing memories is valuable, this particular phrase often shuts down the very connections we try to build. It can make younger people feel as though they are being lectured rather than heard, compared rather than accepted. When this happens repeatedly, they start pulling away, not because they don't care, but because they don't feel safe being themselves around you. Consider Donna, a 71-year-old woman whose grandson had just started his first job after college. When he shared how difficult it was balancing work and personal life, she responded with, back in my day, we didn't complain. We just got on with it. She believed she was encouraging resilience, but her grandson left that conversation feeling misunderstood and judged, as if his struggles weren't valid. Over time, he stopped opening up to her, and she couldn't understand why. The truth is, when you start a sentence with back in my day, what others often hear is what you're going through doesn't matter. It unintentionally dismisses their reality. Even if your intention is to share wisdom, it may not be received that way, especially by younger people who are seeking connection, not correction. A phrase meant to offer perspective can end up creating distance instead. That doesn't mean you should stop sharing your stories. C to C, your experiences matter. But instead of framing them as a comparison or critique, try saying, I remember facing something similar once. Would you like to hear about it? This small shift turns a one-sided statement into an invitation for conversation. For T, it shows respect and allows both your story and theirs to coexist. When you lead with curiosity and openness, people respond. They feel safe. They keep coming back. You remain the same wise, experienced person you've always been, but now your words create space for others to share their world with you instead of feeling pushed away. The third phrase, what's the point, hidden within the words, what's the point, is a quiet kind of sadness. 2. At first glance, it might seem like a casual remark born from frustration or fatigue, but when spoken frequently, especially by someone older, it begins to sound like giving up. And the people around you hear that, even if you don't realize it. They hear hopelessness, exhaustion, and a loss of meaning. Over time, this phrase creates a ripple effect, reaching far beyond the moment. It drains the energy from conversations and leaves loved ones feeling uncertain about how to respond or help. Think about Frank, a 76-year-old man who was once the life of the party. After his wife passed away, his conversation slowly changed. When his daughter invited him out, he'd sigh and say, "What's the point?" When friends called, he'd respond, "There's no point anymore." Eventually, the invitation stopped, not because they didn't care, but because it was painful to hear him talk that way. His words made them feel powerless, as though nothing they could offer would make a difference. Here's the hard truth. When you say, "What's the point?" often enough, people may start to believe you. They might stop trying. Not because they're angry, but because they love you, and it breaks their hearts to keep hearing that your life has no meaning. But the truth is, there is always a point. Even if the world has changed, even if your routines are different, even if your roles have shifted, your presence still holds value. Your words still matter. The key is remembering that your worth doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are, and the stories only you can tell. Instead of saying, "What's the point?" try asking yourself, what would bring me a little joy today? This one question can transform your entire day. It opens the door to small actions, tiny sparks of purpose, and those small sparks, when shared, can reignite the connections between you and the people who care about you most. Hope, even in small amounts, draws people in. It reminds them that their presence matters, that their efforts are welcomed, and that they are not alone in wanting to keep the light on. Stay with me for the second part of this discussion, where we'll uncover even more phrases that could be silently pushing people away, and how to replace them with words that bring people closer. It may seem like a harmless defense, a way to protect yourself from judgment or avoid a difficult explanation. But over time, this phrase becomes a barrier, an emotional wall that keeps others at a distance. What starts as a means of self-preservation or avoiding discomfort slowly sends the message that true connection isn't possible. And when you say it often enough, people start to believe it. They stop asking, stop trying, and gradually pull away, not out of disinterest, but out of quiet defeat. I remember hearing about Eleanor, an 82-year-old widow who had endured immense hardship, health struggles, loss, and loneliness. Her granddaughter, just entering her 30s, tried repeatedly to get close to her. She asked questions, offered to visit, and even suggested cooking meals together. But whenever the conversation took a deeper turn, Eleanor would shake her head and say, "You wouldn't understand." Eventually, her granddaughter stopped asking, not because she didn't care, but because she felt shut out, as if her presence wasn't enough, her care not valid. When you say "you wouldn't understand," you may think you're sparing someone the burden of your story. But in reality, you're denying them the chance to show up. You're telling them their empathy isn't welcome, their effort won't be enough. In doing so, you don't just protect yourself, you isolate yourself. The truth is, people don't have to fully understand your experience to want to share it with you. Connection isn't built on perfect comprehension. It's built on presence, listening, and care. By allowing someone to sit with you in your truth, even if they don't grasp every detail, you give them a gift. You invite them closer. You let them love you in the way they know how. Instead of saying you wouldn't understand, try something like, "It's hard to explain, but I'd like to share if you're open to hearing." That small shift changes everything. It creates space, honors both your experience and their effort, and invites conversation, even if it's imperfect. People want to be included in your world. They want to help carry the emotional weight with you, not take it from you. Don't push them away before they even have the chance to step in. Let them try. Let them care. Let them understand in their own way. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you do so and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Your support helps us continue creating content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 5, the phrase, "I'm too old for that." Saying, "I'm too old for that" might feel like an honest statement, maybe even a light-hearted one. But over time, it becomes a quiet resignation, a line drawn in the sand. When you use that phrase, especially around people who care about you, it doesn't just close off opportunities, it closes off connection. It sends the message that life is behind you, that trying something new, participating, or even just showing interest is no longer worth the effort. And people hear that. They feel it. And gradually, they stop inviting you in. Let me tell you about Charles, 81, who used to love music. When his friends organized a small community choir, they asked if he'd like to join them, like he used to. Without thinking, he said, "I'm too old for that." The offer never came again, not because they didn't want him there, but because that one phrase told them his days of joining in were over. What he didn't see was that it wasn't about performance. It was about presence. About sharing a moment, a laugh, a memory. When you say, "I'm too old for that," you might think you're setting realistic expectations. But more often, you're telling yourself and others that you've stopped seeing yourself as someone capable of joy, curiosity, or adventure. It tells people not to expect anything from you. And while that might feel safe, it's also deeply isolating. The truth is, there's no expiration date on wonder. You're not too old to learn something new, try a different hobby, or join a conversation outside your comfort zone. You're not too old to say yes. And when you do, you remind others and yourself that aging isn't about stepping back. It's about stepping differently. Instead of saying, "I'm too old for that," try saying, "That's new to me, but I'll give it a try." Or even, "Tell me more about it." Those words don't commit you to anything, but they keep the door open. They show that you're still present, still engaged, still willing to stretch, even if just a little. People are drawn to that kind of spirit. It's not about proving anything, it's about participating. About reminding others that you still want to share the experience of being alive, no matter what your knees, your memory, or your energy might be doing that day. The moment you stop saying, "I'm too old for that," is the moment you start living in a way that invites others back in. You stop pushing people away with your own limitations and start showing them there's still so much left of you to know. And that's a beautiful thing. Number 6, the phrase, "I don't matter anymore." Few words are as heartbreaking as "I don't matter anymore." It's the kind of phrase that slips out in quiet moments when you feel unseen, unheard, or unsure of your place in the world. But while those feelings are valid, the words themselves do lasting harm, not just to you, but to the people who care about you. Because when you say this often enough, it begins to rewrite the story of how others see you. It replaces your identity with a sense of absence. Worst of all, it makes those around you feel helpless, like no amount of love or effort can ever reach you. Let me tell you about Lorraine, an 83-year-old who had always been the pillar of her family. After her husband passed and her health declined, she began saying things like, "I don't matter anymore. I'm just here, taking up space." Her son, her daughter-in-law, even her teenage grandchildren would visit and try to engage her. But each time she said it, they left feeling a little more deflated. Over time, they came less frequently, not out of neglect, but because they didn't know how to fight against a message that kept shutting them out. When you say, "I don't matter anymore," you take yourself out of the picture. You silence your own voice. While you may think you're just expressing how you feel, you're also creating emotional distance. People begin to worry they're not enough to lift you up. They feel like they're failing you, even when they're trying their best. And that's a heavy thing to carry. But here's what's still true. No matter your age, you do matter. You matter not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. Your life, your story, your presence carries meaning. You have shaped people's lives. You have survived hardships. You have offered love. And even now, your presence holds weight. Instead of saying, I don't matter anymore, try. Sometimes I feel invisible, but I want to feel connected. That shift is honest, but it also invites others in. It gives them a way to meet you where you are. It creates space for kindness to land, for love to reach you. Speak with honesty, yes, but also with hope. Because your voice, your presence, your story still matter more than you know.